Hello guys, today we're going to talk about serving static files and media files using Nginx. So what you can see is a basic architecture of what you're going to build. We have our client here sending a request to localhost port 80, and in our server, our localhost, that is, we're going to have Docker. We're going to utilize Docker, and we'll spin up two services, a proxy service and an app service using Docker Compose. And for the proxy service, it's going to be our web server, which is Nginx listening at port 80, and for the app service it's going to be our Django application, which will be listening at port 8000, right? And right here we have port binding. So here in port binding, basically we are making the port 80 of Nginx, right, of our proxy service. We're making it available to port 80 of our local hosts. When we get to Docker Compose, you'll see how that works, port binding. And then right here we're going to have a volume. So this volume right here, it will make it possible for us to share static files and media files which are generated by our Django application to Nginx. So basically here we're going to have a static root and a media root in our Django application, which we will put our static files and media files in one directory. Then that directory we're going to map it to a volume, right? And then from that volume now we will map that static files and media files to a certain path in our Nginx container. We will also see how Nginx processes our HTTP requests. So basically here we are just using Nginx to serve static files and media files, right? So when a HTTP request comes in, we will check the path of the URL. If it is a /static or a /media prefix, then Nginx will respond to the client by sending the specific CSS file or specific image that has been requested. But if it is, let's say for example, a login request, right, then that request will be sent will be proxied to our Django application. Then Django will send a response back to the web server. Then the web server will send the response back to the client. We are going to see how that flow works, right? So keep watching and let's learn. So guys, here is our code. As you can see, I've started a simple Django project. You can do the same on your side. And then I've also started an application, my app application. When we go inside the models.py, I've created a model, a football player model, and it has a name field and an image field. And if you're going to work with an image field just like me, ensure you install Pillow. Pillow is a required package when you're working with images in Python, right? So the purpose of creating this model is to test out media files, because remember, media files are files uploaded by users, right? So we want to be able to upload images so that you can test if Nginx will serve those media files, that image that we are going to upload, right? We're going to see that once we start uploading the image and testing out if Nginx serves that image. That's it for the application. It's nothing much. And then for the project, we're going to settings.py. We're going to set up settings for our static files and media files. As you can see, already static URL is already set. So we're going to set up media URL, static root, and media root. And for the media URL, I'm just going to use media URL and then put in media right there. And then I'm also going to set static root and media root. Static root and media root, I'll just use /vol/static, and here for the media root I'll use media root and then media, right? So basically here for the media root, for this, let me start with the static root. For the static root, once we run python manage.py collect static, it will put all our static files in one single directory, and this directory is what we're going to map into our Docker volume, and then it will be mapped to a path inside Nginx container, right? Same thing with media root. Once we upload let's say an image, for example, the image will be put in this path right here, vol/media. Then after that we're going to map it to a Docker volume, then we map it to Nginx. We're going to see that once we start writing Docker Compose, right? We start creating these services. All right. And then also when you install payload, don't forget to include it in your requirements.txt file by just running pip freeze. You redirect the output to requirements.txt file just to update your requirements.txt file, right? So next we are going to create Docker file for our Django application. We're just going to create it in our root directory. It's going to be Docker file without any extensions. Then we're going to bring in the base image. I'm going to use Python, obviously. It's a Django application, Python version 11.5, and I'm going to use Slim Bullseye. You can use any base image that you want, be it Alpine. Then next up, I'm going to set up two environment variables here, Python unbuffered, which is one, and another one is Python don't write bytecode. Alright, those two environment variables are essential when you're working with any Python application in Docker, right? Then I'm going to set up the work directory, which is going to be /app. Then next I'm going to copy a requirements.txt file to /app. So basically here it's just in the current directory, right? Requirements.txt. In the current directory, it will look for this file right here, requirements.txt, which is this one, right? So all the contents of this file, it will be copied to our app directory inside the container. Then next up, I'm going to run the installation of the dependencies which are found in our requirements.txt file. So I'm just going to run pip install requirements.txt. Then next up, I'm going to copy all the contents of our application to the working directory. So copy all the contents inside the working directory. Then next up, now I'm going to write a command. Okay, what in this entry point right here, I'm going to put in a script, a bash script that will be executed once our container is spin up, right? So sh means start a shell session. Then I'm going to use a flag C. Then I'm going to create a script known as start.sh, right? Like that. Then let me just create a directory called scripts. Then inside the directory of scripts, I can create the start.sh file. So it means here I'll specify scripts first, like that. So this will run when we spin up our container. This script will be executed when we spin up our container. So this is a bash file. It's a bash script, I mean. So I'll just do like that. I put in the shebang. Then I'm going to do set E. Then next up, I'm going to make the migrations. Then I'm going to migrate, and I'm also going to run python-py collect statics code. Remember, we want to collect all our static files in a single directory so that you can map it to a Docker volume. So python-py collect static, and I'm going to specify no input because I want it to be yes automatically. I won't be able to access the shell or the terminal to put in yes manually, so automatically yes. Then I'm going to use Gunicorn to run the server. Gunicorn, what's the name of our project? Project.wizgy. I'm going to bind it to all IPs by doing that, and it will be running at port 8000, right? So basically that's our script. So this script right here will be executed once we spin up a container for our Django application, right? Then I will make sure I install JUnit just by running pip install JUnit. JUnit is an HTTP WSGI server, if maybe you didn't know. And there's many other options apart from JUnit, like uWSGI if you wish to use that, but I always use JUnit most of the time. So let's wait for it to complete install. Alright, then ensure you update your requirements.txt file, and okay, yeah, it's done. That's it. So next up we're going to talk about our proxy web server. So guys, we're going to start creating our proxy, our Nginx, right? And we're going to set up our configurations for the proxy. So just create a directory called proxy. Inside the directory, create a file which is going to be a default.conf template. So default.conf tpl, and for the default.conf template we're going to create a server block. So the server block, we're going to listen, it will be listening at port, whatever port that we're going to specify in here. It's a environment variable, and don't forget to put in the semicolon. For the environment variable, we're going to set it up inside the Docker file for our proxy, right? We're going to create the Docker file in a minute. Then after that, we'll set up two location blocks here, one /static, and then what we'll just do is alias vol/static. Don't forget the semicolon. It's part of the syntax for default.conf. Then I'll put in /media instead of /static. So what's happening here basically is our default.conf, it's a configuration file for a virtual server in Nginx, right? Basically it will be listening at port, whatever port we're going to specify in our environment variable, but I'm going to specify port 80, so it will be listening at port 80, and then when a request comes in, it will check the path of the URL of that HTTP request. If it has a prefix of /static, then Nginx is going to serve our static file. The static file will be found in this directory right here, /vol/static. But and how will those static files be available there? That is through the use of Docker volumes. Remember, our Django application is what generates these static files and media files, right? So we want, once our Django application has generated those static files and media files, we want them to be put in a Docker volume, and this Docker volume is shared between our two containers, that is Nginx and our Django application, right? So once that static file and the media file are in our Docker volume, we will again map it from the Docker volume to Nginx container. And for the Nginx container particularly, it will be a path of which we're going to specify it as these two paths right here, /vol/static and /vol/media. So it means these two directories will contain our static files and media files respectively. After that, we're going to create another location block. Just if the request does not have a prefix of /media or /static, that means we want to proxy that request to our Django application. Then our Django application will process that request and generate a response. Then the response now will be sent back to our web server. Then the web server will send the response back to the client. So I just put in an empty slash, so it means all other requests apart from /static and /media, they will come to this location block right here. And I'm going to do a proxy pass, which is going to be http // I'm going to put app host, which is going to be the host of our application, and this app host will be the name of our service, our application service, right? Which I'm going to name it app. You'll see that once you get there. And then for the port, for the port, it's just going to be app port. I'm also going to set it up as an environment variable inside the Docker file for our Nginx proxy. And then I'm also going to include let me just do that. I'm going to include proxy params. Let me just add it, and I will talk about it when I create this file proxy params inside this directory right here in a minute. Alright, so basically that's it for our default.conf template. And then next up, I'm going to create another file, which is now the proxy params that I've said I'm going to create right now. Alright, and I'll just copy it from right here. So this is the default configuration provided by Nginx, and I'm going to paste it here. So basically what will be happening here, let me just come back here. What will be happening here is, you see the parameters, these parameters right here, these request headers, hosts, x real IP, x forwarded for, they will be forwarded to our proxy server, right? The server that you are proxying to, there'll be these request headers, they'll be forwarded to this right here, this server that you're going to proxy our request to, right? And there's a reason for that. So ensure you include it. And then next up, you're going to create a Docker file for our proxy. And then I'm just going to bring in the Docker file, then I'll explain how everything works, each line. Let me just, so what do we have here? We are bringing in the base image of Nginx, right? And remember when you said we're going to set up environment variables, right? So we had listen port, app host, and app port. So those three environment variables, we're going to set it up right here. App host is going to be app. Again, app will be the name of our service in Docker Compose. We will see that once we create it. Then the app port is going to be 8000. We already agreed on it that we are going to proxy our request to this host right here, which will be listening at port 8000. And then the listen port is for the Nginx. Nginx is going to listen at port 80. And then right here, we are going to copy the static.sh file in the current directory. Okay, right now I've not created it, but I'm going to create it right now, and I'm going to copy it to this path right here, static.sh, which will be in the root directory of the container. Then of course I give it execute permissions so that you can be able to execute it. It's a bash script. And then I'll create a default.conf file inside this directory, etc/nginx/conf. So ensure it is exactly as it is right here, etc nginx-conf.d/default.conf. And then I'm going to do the same, copy proxy params to etc nginx, and also copy the template inside etc nginx. Then afterwards I'm going to execute the script, which will be found of course inside the container. It will be executed once we spin up this container. So let me create this start.sh file that you can see here. We are copying to the container. So start.sh file, and I'm just going to bring it in so that I can explain it. I'm going to paste it right there. So as you can see here, we have this command right here. This command right here, it basically tells our bash script that if an error is encountered, stop executing the script, right? Stop executing the script, exit. And then down here we have this command env subst. So basically here we are going to substitute all the environment variables that we have used in our default.conf template, we're going to substitute it with the value of that environment variable. And once we substitute it with the value of the environment variable, we want to redirect the output to this directory right here, to this path right here, etc nginx conf.d default.conf. And you're wondering if this path exists. Yes, it does exist, because as you can remember here, we have created it. We've created the default.conf file. This path right here, etc nginx conf.d, it exists by default, right? So basically we just created this right here, default.conf, and that's the path that you're going to copy, or rather redirect the output after replacing the values of those environment variables. After replacing those values of the environment variables, the output will be redirected to this path right here, right? Then after that, you're going to run Nginx, and what we are doing here after running the Nginx is specifying that we want the daemon to be off. It means that we want the process to run in the foreground rather than the background, right? So basically that's it for our Nginx proxy. Then now let's create the docker compose file. I'm going to create it in the root directory, docker compose.yaml. Then I'm just going to paste the code and explain line by line. So we're going to use version 3.8 of docker compose. Then we're going to have two services, app service and proxy service. For the app service, we're going to specify the build context as the current directory, because that's where our docker file is for the Django application, right? And then for the restart always, basically it means here that once our app container stops, or our Django application stops, it will restart automatically, right? And then for the volumes, I'm going to get to the volumes later. Then for the proxy service, same thing, build context is going to be the current directory in proxy, of which that's where our docker file is. Then it's going to restart always, that is when the, again same thing, when the container stops, it will restart automatically unless it has been stopped manually, right? Then here we have port binding. We are going to bind port 80 of our Nginx to port 80 of our local host. So this means that we will be able to access the web server, that is Nginx, via port 80 of our local host, right? Then it depends on the app service, so it means we'll have to wait for the container of the app to spin up first, then the proxy will spin up later, right? So now let's get to the volumes. For the volumes, you're going to have a static data volume, which is going to contain our static files, and a media data volume, which is going to contain our media files, right? So let's start with the app service. For the app service, as you can see here in our volumes, we are going to map static data volume to /vol/static. And remember, /vol/static is the static root where all our static files that were generated by our Django application are put, right? So it means all these static files that are available here will be mapped to static data. And then for vol/media, which is a media root, all the media files that are available in this path right here, /vol/media, will be mapped to the media data volume, right? Then after that, when you come down here to the proxy, right, now our static data volume has static files, right? Because remember, we did not move them, but we just mapped it from this directory to the static data volume. So it means this has our static files, right? So we are going to map the static files that are available inside this static data volume to /vol/static of our Nginx container, right? We're going to do the same thing for the media data. The media files that are available in this volume, they'll be mapped to /vol/media of the Nginx container, right? So basically that's it for our docker compose, right? So now let's spin up these services using the following command: docker compose app. Ensure the docker daemon is running. As you can see here, for my case, it is running. So guys, on my side it is running. If it is not running on your side, you can just comment down below and we will solve the problem together. So let me head to my browser localhost port 80. Remember, that's where our Nginx is listening from, port 80. And I'll just click OK. And right, it's working okay. But let's visit the admin so that you can see if the static files are being served by Nginx, right? Right there, the static files, it's working, right? You can see here it has been styled. And let's head back to our server, and as you can see here, Django Nginx proxy, the proxy server is what is serving our static files, right? Yeah, okay, I wanted to see this. You can see here there's a get request sent to /static /admin /css responsive.css, and what is serving that, it's our Nginx right here, our proxy, not our app service, the Nginx proxy, right? And let's create a super user so that you can log in and also test out media files, right? How I can do that, basically by just first, let's see the running containers. We have to running containers here, and we're going to access the shell of our app container so that you can be able to create a super user. So just do docker exec, then pass in the flag it, then pass in the container ID of our app, then specify bash so that you can open a bash terminal. Then you can run commands like ls. So basically we want just to create a super user, right? You can just do the normal way how you always do, create super user. Then alright, I'll just leave it as root, leave it blank. Then I'll specify password is password. Alright, then yes, super user created successfully. Let's go and log in. Our username was root, then for the password was password. Alright, we are logged in successfully, and we will come and create a football player so that you can test out the media files. If you upload a media file, will it be served by Nginx? So I'm going to create a football player, say Messi, then I upload a file, an image, and I'll just look for the GOAT right here, and I'm going to open, then I'm going to save that. Okay, it's taking some time. Alright, let's access the object, and we'll click right here the link to the image right there. You see it is working, /media, then the name of the image, right? Then when you come here, you'll see that we are serving the media file from Nginx. Let me look for it. There has to be /media somewhere here. Alright, it's right here. We have a get request /media the name of the image, which is being served by our proxy, not our application, right? So basically that's it about serving static files and media files using Nginx. Alright, that was it for this tutorial. Hope you liked it. Smash that like button and subscribe for more content. Thank you.